Do you want to get your coloring from this to this? Well then keep watching. Hi, my name is Sierra, I'm an editor and a how to train drawing enthusiast, and today I'm going to show you how I do my coloring for literally all my edits. I use After Effects 2026 to make all my edits, and therefore I also use it to make my coloring, but you should be able to follow the tutorial with older versions. Oh, and for some of the parts of the tutorial you do need to have the BCC and Diplo 2 plugins. And now that that's all out of the way, let's get started. As you can see, I've already imported the clip, and it kinda looks bland right now because we haven't added any coloring yet. So we're going to fix that. The first thing you need to do is add an adjustment layer. Go to Layer, New, Adjustment Layer, and add it to your composition. Any effects given to the adjustment layer will be applied to the other layers underneath it. Therefore, you don't have to copy-paste every single effect onto the individual clips, which saves a lot of time. Now, the first effect that you want to add to your adjustment layer is Sharpen. And as the name suggests, it sharpens your footage. As for the sharpen amount, you just kind of have to toy around and see what settings work for you, but I settled on the sharpening amount of 50. But don't set your sharpening too high, because otherwise they might end up looking like those fugly 8K quality edits. I'm a bit of a hater on them, I'm sorry. And right underneath Sharpen is something called the Unsharp Mask. Add this to your adjustment layer as well. I watched a tutorial for this like maybe once or twice, and honestly I'm kind of winging the amount and radius right now. But in the end I stuck with a amount of 40 and a radius of 10. And next up we're going to use our first plugin named Diplo 2. This step is definitely not required, but I personally like to add it to give my coloring this kind of glowy look. And as you can probably tell, the footage is way too bright right now, so we're going to fix that. I always set the radius to 100 and the exposure to 0.01. Going on to the next effect, saturation. So what saturation basically does is either upscale the vibrance of a color or downscale it to like a dull grayish color. The saturation that I mainly use is -15, but it also really depends on the vibe of the edit. So for example, if I make like an aesthetic edit or like a more happy or loving edit, then I put the saturation up, but if I make a more sad edit, then I put the saturation down. You can also adjust the lightness to either brighten up or darken your clip, but I personally don't really use it that much. Moving on to the next part, brightness and contrast. Once again, brightness can make your clip look brighter, and contrast can make your shadows look sharper. So right here I put my brightness to an amount of 20, but I'm later going to change it back to 0, and my contrast amount I have set to 50. And now comes my favorite part, the actual coloring. For this step I use the levels effect, and do make sure that you pick the one with the individual controls. I personally always like to give my edits this cooler toned look, therefore I set the red gamma to either 0.90 or 0.95. And I put the blue gamma to 1.20. Once again, you just kind of need to play around with the settings and see which ones are to your liking. And lastly, the finishing touch, Vignette, which I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Vignette basically adds this dark, shadowy border around your composition. Right now it looks really dark, so I'm changing the opacity to 60 and the size to 100. And that's how I make my coloring. Here is a little comparison of what the clip looks like with and without the effects. Better quality and a lot more unique, I'd say. Now all that's left to do is simply render your composition. And you're done! Hooray! Now if you've made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end, and if you have any questions, be sure to ask them in the comments. I'll try to get back to you ASAP. And if this video was helpful to you and you want to see more tutorials from me, make sure to subscribe and stay up to date. And of course, I do hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye!